G'day, and welcome to my review of Mage's Initiation, Reign of Elements. This is a particularly interesting game for me as it's a modern game, as in 2019, and I usually only talk about retro games on this channel, but this one has been so lovingly designed that it not only emulates the classic mid-90s adventures, but actually replicates them. Because, retro gaming has split into a number of styles. It no longer means a game that is from the past, though it will always mean that to people like me. We see many games that are taking inspiration from the past, like say the spiritual successor types like Celeste, which is a retro-inspired platformer, but the game itself is decidedly not retro, at all. It is a modern game with modern design, concepts, modern controls, and modern sensibilities. It's just using classic art and sound design as it looks awesome, and the designers like that aesthetic. Mage's Initiation, though, is an interesting pedigree. You see, back before the gaming industry started to focus so heavily on all-purpose game engines like Unreal and Unity, there was a strong hobby scene in specialty engines. And the adventure game scene was no different, with a number of small groups or individuals building completely free and robust engines to make adventure games. Things like Wintermute and AGS, Adventure Game Studio. They were, and still are, extremely adept at producing both in hobby projects and commercial ones, and this game itself is made in AGS. Now, AGS is particularly adept at producing Sierra-style games. It's so flexible that you can make Lucasfilm or Legend Entertainment style games, but it's really, at its base level, it's just excellent at producing that sort of classic Sierra style. Yet the adventure game scene with these engines was more akin to what we now call the modding scene. Groups of talented individuals got together and produced some truly fantastic and free games in these engines. And like modern modding groups, they're kind of open source freedom to how everything was done and organized. It was an awesome time. There are some absolute gems produced in Wintermute and AGS that you can play for free right now if you browse the archives. And of course you can just, download the engines themselves and make your own games if you wish. One such group was called AGD Interactive, or Anonymous Game Developers. AGD was a team that got famous for producing some truly excellent AGS games that were loving recreations of classic Sierra games. These were shot-for-shot remakes and designed to build a VGA version of those classic games that never got an official VGA treatment. And this history kind of shows you why Mage's Initiation is something a little unique. It is literally a retro game, in inverted commas. If you didn't know, you could be fooled into thinking this was a mid-90s Sierra game. It is not so much a retro-inspired game, but more a carefully produced forgery of a 90s game. This makes it extremely appealing to classic adventure game fans. The years of experience at ADG in producing classic replications of classic games has placed them in a position to bring us a game that feels like it's from my youth. Not a game inspired by the games of my youth, but a game that I just never played when I was young. I think there's a subtle yet powerful distinction. Added to this game's allure is the fact that it's trying to appeal to fans of one of the most honoured and respected game series of all time among adventure game fans, Hero's Quest, or Quest for Glory it's also known by. That game is, in my opinion, one of the more important games of our times. It is way too big a topic to go into now, but Hero's Quest changed things. A game this popular, has inspired many games over the years, and many of them are built in AGS by fans. Many of them are firmly in the hobby dev category and are fun to play for curiosity, but not really full games. But recently, with the resurgence of the adventure game genre, there have been a few games that really stood out. We have Heron Quest, Quest for Infamy, and of course Hero U. Heron Quest is a free game, and like Mage Initiation is lovingly crafted in AGS, and is a homage to the Hero's Quest games. Quest for Infamy is likewise an AGS game, but it's not free. It also turns the hero thing around, which makes it unpalatable to some gamers who just like playing evil characters, and kind of rude. It's kind of a rude game as well. It's definitely not for kids. Hero U, on the other hand, is actually designed by the Cole family, the original designers and writers of Hero's Quest games. I know they're called Quest for Glory, but I grew up with calling them Hero's Quest, and I just can't get past it. Over all these years, I still say Hero's Quest because that's the title it had when I played it. Hero U was expected to be the new Hero's Quest, the ones that fans have always wanted. I mean, it was, after all, the original designers. But being creatives themselves, they decided to do something much more ambitious. And while Hero U is in itself a great game that I really enjoy, and it has this really similar, almost identical vibe because it's got the same kind of writing and humour and all that kind of stuff, it's really not the Hero's Quest game fans were expecting. So the stage is really set for Mage's initiation, and it has all the right pieces going for it. It's got an extremely good team, the ADG guys. Well, they're actually called Himalaya Games. They have like a sort of professional arm. So they've got the hobby group. I don't even know if they're still active, but they've got a professional arm called Himalaya Games. So you've got this extremely experienced team of using AGS to create beautiful replicas of old games. They've also got an obvious passion because their Quest for Glory 2, their version of Quest for Glory 2 is, in my opinion, one of the best hobby adventure game projects ever. I mean, it is so good, so good. So they've obviously got a fandom for the style of game, and they're really good at AGS, and the fan base, the adventure game fan base, is clamoring for this kind of game. They want one to come out that fills this niche. So everything's aligning for these guys. And this is where the game actually falls down. And do not get me wrong, I really, really liked this game. I played it through much faster than most other games. I would rate this up there with Unavowed. I'd rate this up there with Tumbleweed Park. I mean, I think it's a great, great game, but it is not the Hero's Quest game that people thought it was going to be. See, the Hero's Quest was very unique. I mean, it was kind of like a very early attempt at like a open world RPG. Mage Initiation is very, very linear, and it has like a big forest to explore and a big waste, like a big desert to explore, but it's not like in Hero's Quest and Quest for Glory 2 or Quest for Glory 4 as well, where the world was much more intricate. I mean, for example, you don't really need to make maps. Like in Quest for Glory 1 or Quest for Glory 4, whatever, you kind of made these maps of the locations because you needed to find things. You need to wander around and explore. But in this game, it's not really like that. You can just wander around randomly and you'll usually find the few places that you need to get to. In addition, the really huge thing about the Hero's Quest games was that you could choose between a variety of classes. It was originally just 3 classes, like Fighter, Mage, and Thief, but then it expanded, things like Paladin and, all that kind of stuff. And these different classes had vastly different ways of playing the game. There was entire sections of the game that you would never see if you played in one particular class. Like, for example, if you're a Thief, you've got the whole Thief Guild stuff and you've got robbing houses. If you're the Mage, like in Quest for Glory 2, you have the entire initiation rite that becomes part of the Wizard Circle. And these were completely separate paths that you would never witness. And it's redundant game design. It's the kind of thing that sounds great in theory, but then you realize when you're making the game, go, oh, hang on, I just spent months building this part of the game that only a small percentage of the people are going to see. So there's a reason but why it wasn't like this, because Mage's Initiation, right, you can be one of a bunch of different types of mages. You can be a fire mage, an earth mage, a water mage, and an air mage. Now, these choices do not create the same kind of division in the game as people kind of expected. Basically, the game plays exactly the same no matter who you choose, except for the occasional puzzle that actually will not allow you to do the normal solution in inverted commas and will force you to just use a spell. My example, as a mage, I played an earth mage on my first run through and I played a air mage on my second run through. Now, when you're playing the earth mage, there's this sequence where there's this wounded person, you've got to pull a rock out of their leg, right? So on the air mage, you can literally just click on him with your hand and he'll just pull the rock out. But as an Earth Mage, you have to use the Earth spell to summon the rock, because rock is Earth, out of the guy's leg. And these are the kind of changes that really were not good enough for the fans for what they were expecting. You know what I mean? We wanted, Hero's Quest style, where like you could climb the tree, or you could throw rocks at the tree, or you could like cast fetch spells at the tree, or like you could just play in a more organic way, making choices that change things, change how the game was experienced. So this is a huge disappointment about this game. But I really don't want to get across the fact that this game is bad, because it is not bad, right? It is just suffering like Hero U and Heroine Quest and Quest for Infamy. It's those games and this one all suffer that people are coming into it expecting a game that it's not. It's marketed and advertised, and even I've been speaking about in this review how it is kind of like Hero's Quest, but really when you get down to it, it's not really like those games. And I'm not sure it's fair to judge a game on what it's not. You know what I mean? Like, it's very easy to play a game and go, well, I wish it was like this, it's not like this, so it sucks. You got to look at the game for what it is. And what this game is beautifully drawn, very well executed. It's got fantastic voice acting.
Welcome, Initiate.
You have trained long and hard under our roof. Your element has chosen you well.
Already, your time as a novice is drawing to a close.
Soon you will demonstrate mastery over your power.
Except, this is quite common in adventure games for some reason, but the main protagonist, the one that you play, his voiceover isn't particularly good.
The sphere of knowledge. It determines whether a novice or mage is ready to receive new abilities. I'll also need to attach something buoyant. These two items do nothing.
This is done in AGS, right? So there's some sound limitation. They use OGG sound format, I think. So there's some over crunching with the compression that makes it a little bit hissy, especially with people with really high quality speakers. Apart from the main protagonist, I love the voiceovers, I love the art. The story is actually good. The questing is good. I mean, this is old school questing, you know what I mean? It's not too hard. I mean, they've gone out of their way to make the game flow move along. I mean, it's not like Unavowed, where it's like basically just playing the game for you. You just got to click on a few things. But it's still really, really good game. I found it to be utterly charming, and I basically played this non-stop for about 4 days. I played it 2 times in a row, and that's not because I made this review. I made this review because I enjoyed it so much. So it is a good game. It's a fun game, beautiful art, and I like the way it's written. I like the characters. I like pretty much everything about it. But it's important to realize that it fails at being Quest for Glory, 6. Okay? It's just not. And it's close. I mean, it's almost to the point where, like, it's got a combat system, because that's what Quest for Glory has. But the combat system is... It could easily not be in this game. It's pretty clunky, and it's probably my least favorite. There's even a achievement for not getting into combat at all, except for boss fights. That kind of tells you how important combat is to this game, as in it's not important at all. And they've also removed the Quest for Glory style, leveling system. So basically, Hero's Quest had a system where, kind of like Skyrim, right? You would gain points in your skills by using them. So if you wanted to get good at lockpicking, you had to pick 1 billion locks. In this one, it's basically a level-based system. You get XP as you solve puzzles and earn points. So you earn points, every X amount of points, you get points that you can then add into your character sheet. The idea behind this is very good. It just removes grinding. Or anyone who's played Hero's Quest games, they know that they've sat for hours in front of the dartboard going F3 enter because they've typed in throw dagger or whatever. So that's all gone, which is good. But even so, the entire leveling system, the entire combat system, it seems like it's been added because of the legacy of Quest for Glory, when it's not really needed in this game at all. I mean, you could literally remove it and turn this into a more King's Quest style game where you're just playing Graham and just going about your world in a fantasy setting. There's no real reason for the extra dimension of having stats and having equipment and having combat, because it's almost unnecessary. And that was a huge disappointment. I mean, I don't think it impacts the game too much, but I can really see how die-hard fans of the genre loaded this game up and they're playing it through and they are unable to get past that problem, because it is a problem in my opinion. But even so, like I said, I immensely enjoyed this game. I think it is really high up there with the recent adventure games. I mentioned before Unavowed. I loved Unavowed. That game was so good. And I think this game is better than that. You know, I loved Whispering World. I loved Diadeck Entertainment, period. You know, I loved Thumbleweed Park. And I think this game is right up there with the best of the adventure games that have been released recently. It was almost like they made it for me. It was so my style of game. And while, the same with Hero U, I appreciate the fact that they've tried to do their own thing. They've tried to modify it to make it more their own. I also kind of wish they just, I just wish it was more like Quest for Glory. I mean, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting to this day for Quest for Glory 6. Someone's going to make it one day. Someone's going to sit down and make that game. And it could be these guys. They've left themselves open for sequels, and I think what they really need to do is dump AGS. I mean, AGS is a great thing. They're obviously very competent with it, so they know how to use it, which is a huge thing when you're making games. It's better to use an older engine that you know how to use than a brand new one you don't. But at the same time, there's limitations that have been given to them because they're using AGS that I think they should shed. So, in summary, this game is very good, and it's definitely worth your time if you're interested in, old school adventure games, particularly old school Sierra games like Hero's Quest. But at the same time, this game is kind of a false advertisement. It's not really the game you think it is. I think the real comparison I make is that it's trying to be Hero's Quest, but it's really more like King's Quest. And if they remove those Hero's Quest stuff from the game, like the different, like the stat system and the combat, and just had it more like, straight up King's Quest, it actually would have been a better game. And it also would have avoided all the comparisons to Hero's Quest, which is what is dragging this game down in reviews and comment boards and stuff like that. Because people were expecting something that it really isn't. But it's still really good. Thanks for watching.